Okay, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today I have a really special episode for you guys, a whole new kind of format to really kick things off and really add a new dimension to the channel. And my first guest is Aldo, who's a great guy who I recently met in person. I'll let him kind of figure out that side of the story and share it with you guys. But essentially we're here to talk watches, we're here to talk about collecting watches and just kind of come together and really just, you know, have a conversation and get you guys in the conversation. So as you're going, make sure you're okay to leave comments down there in the comments section, read the description, follow the links, all that good stuff. But with that said, let's go ahead and pass it to Aldo.
Thank you, Mark. Hey everyone, this is Aldo. Nice to meet you all. Great to be here. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation, and feels very special to be first guest in this new format. So definitely looking forward to it. Definitely looking forward to talking watches, sharing the journey and the collection, and yeah, let's get this going.
Awesome, awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and hear a little bit about the collection with a little intro.
All right, thanks for that intro. So as far as the collection, it focuses a lot on neo-vintage pieces, which I love. Also because of the handle that I have, it's all about art. And finally, I'm also going to highlight some Genta pieces because he's definitely an individual that I particularly delve into, learn a lot about, and as you guys all know, have a lot of influence in the watch world back then, today, and perhaps even into the future. So I wanted to start off with art. Right. So art and watches. It's I think this is the perfect representation for it. So this is the Alain Silberstein Chrono Bauhaus, and again, this is circa probably late 90s or so. Don't quote me on it, but I definitely love this piece because it just has everything that you want in a watch, in my opinion. You've got the functionalities of the chronograph, the day, date, month. You've got the moon phase, and you've got his signature styling, and that is found all throughout the watch itself. And as you can see, this is not necessarily a lacquer, but it's definitely giving you that optical illusion that this watch is actually smaller than what it really is. I say that you gotta love the squid game pushers, yes. But yeah, and I'll go ahead and activate the chrono there, and oh, well, not quite because I didn't wind it.
It's not right.
It's not fully wound, but
first world problems.
There you go. Exactly. But it is definitely one where you can just stare at it all day. And Alain Silberstein, he's not only an architect, but he's a big watch designer, and certainly one of those situations where we, yeah.
Wow, that the side case profile, so cool that they were able to use that slab space and kind of, gosh, I don't even know what to call that. I mean, it almost looks topographical, which it gives it a almost like a map kind of look, but you know, there's definitely an artistry in terms of the way that that enamel is kind of broken down and creates a pattern, and the color play is amazing, especially considering the year. What year did you say this was circa around?
This was circa 90s.
Oh wow.
Which fits the wheelhouse.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey. He was ahead of the game, but he was also at the same time right there in the middle of it, you know, with that. And yeah, that movement looks a little familiar.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So it does have a valjoux movement in there, and you gotta love the rotor that's on there. But yeah, I mean, it's one of the features that I love about it is, as you can see there right now, it's a smiley face, and so it's Friday. You know, I guess it's close to the weekend, and then Saturday, Sunday would have bigger smiles in red, and just the little details that you can stare at, and that's what does it for me. Is all about the details, even the texture of the dial itself and the registers. But this is the to me the epitome of watch artology.
Oh man, yeah, what a great watch to kind of kick off this very eclectic collection with, because even just the design itself for this singular watch is eclectic to say the least. Very, very cool.
So in continuing with the art aspect of it, here's the Brigade 7027 tradition. This came out in the late 90s, if I'm not mistaken. And this right here is just a piece that, again, is art on the wrist. This signifies, I feel, Brigade's desire to incorporate the past and lead it into the future. And I think that's one of the things that I love about this watch, is that it has all of that. It is stealth. I know the first time I laid eyes on this particular line, there's a number of different variations of it, but this particular one, which is pretty much gray on black, is just so stealth. And again, you could just look at the oscillation there and watch that all day. It's a manual wound, so you definitely get to interact with the piece, and it also has a full stop hacking there. So again, set the time, off you go. And
that's so cool.
Yeah. So yeah, just all the elements of Brigade, even along the side of the case there with the design.
I like that you kind of mentioned it was, you know, their futuristic look, right? But it's so awesome to have that kind of retro futuristic. Like, we're well beyond the steampunk days that I think people imagined all those years back. So to see their kind of take on what the future would bring and what it would hold is just very, very cool, especially as somebody who enjoys mechanical watches, right? Versus now, there's so many things that are electric. You know, there's circuits and chips, which are nowhere near as sexy when it comes to analog. I mean, just watching that hack was just such a joy. The tactile engagement of watching it, just an old school hack, but then you're seeing it as it's happening. It's not just a seconds stopping there, you know, while you're setting a military watch. It's seeing everything just come to a halt, and that is definitely very, very special. Absolutely. Very, very cool. My gosh. And the cool thing is, I mean, today, something like this, I mean, I guess even back then was still, you know, pretty hot in terms of horology. But, you know, that asymmetrical look, kind of having the main dial be a sub-dial and opening up the machine work, that's something that is still very, very popular today and still has yet to really be mastered, right? Like, everyone's still having new takes on, you know, such a cool idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing that you just have to appreciate. And I do feel, and I think that's the reason why I am just so drawn to the new vintage years, is I feel like it gives you the sense of like growth that I feel brands are looking towards. So
absolutely.
Whether it be a growth into the future, or even a rebirth in a way of what they had.
Absolutely. You can't buy vision. Well, you can. Yeah. When they make it, right? Like, wow. I mean, this is truly a vision executed, and, you know, it's a little snapshot in time. Very, very cool.
Daniel Roth. So this is the indie in my collection, and this piece is, again, circa the 90s, and this right here follows a lot of the, again, vision and growth and that one has. So Daniel Roth, as you can see from all of this, has a lot of Brigade influence to it, and historically he did revive Brigade, and this piece, I think, signifies his touch, and as you can see, the uniqueness of it all, from the double ellipse case, or as some people call it, the stadium case shape, onto the side, just the multi-level and the multifaceted aspect of the case itself. It's just extremely unique. And
wow.
I mean, I know that there was that craze of Daniel Roth prior to it, but again, I have to give a shout out to a fellow collector and friend who educated me in Roth before all of that, and to have this opportunity to have this in the collection is certainly a great one.
Yeah, no, I mean, that case, it looks so modern at the same time. Like, you would never know. I mean, obviously the scale, right? It's quite a diminutive size, very traditional, especially for something with complications, right? With the chronograph. But my goodness, I mean, if you guys can get an idea, you can see that's an 18mm lug width. So this is a very slender, very small watch, but if that thing had an LCD screen, I would absolutely believe that it was a smartwatch, just because of how rounded and the steps and everything on the case, that high polish. It has all these contemporary flares, which I really like. And then of course those ornate details in that dial, which I'm sure are all hand machined, you know, hand turned, you know, which is just, you know, takes it to a whole nother level. And I'm happy we're able to see this right here in this beautiful sunlight, because it definitely is capturing the true spirit of this piece.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, this right here, I mean, you put it perfectly with all the details of all the dial, and just, again, even down to the registers. So you just can stare at it all day.
Very, very cool.
All right, so moving from Daniel Roth to another individual that is renowned in the watch world, Genta. And this is the Bi-Arena Retro Sport. And I particularly love this piece because of its complication. I'm all about complications. I'm all about, again, just the artistic aspect of it, and the ability to incorporate all of that into a watch. And this one here is a jump hour retrograde. And as you can see thus far, a lot of my pieces are about under 40mm. And I feel that it is important to make sure that the fit and proportionality looks good and feels comfortable on your wrist. So this piece here is an automatic piece. One thing that I love too is just you've got the rubber strap, so this can easily be a daily as well as a summer piece, or every season piece really. But again, the details not only is on the dial, you've got the lume aspect of it, you've got the little transparency there to kind of expect and know what the next hour is, but you also see down to the edges and how they're able to design everything and make sure that the functionality is still there, even on the crown. So with this guy here, everybody loves the action of the retrograde. So fun little show and tell.
Oh,
and there you go. There.
That was nice.
So it is it's certainly a fun conversational piece, but it's just smooth and it's just great. And if I remember wearing this, and it was when you're still enough, you could actually feel the little bump from the hour there. So
very cool.
Yeah, so definitely another favorite piece of mine. It can take on daily activity really.
Yeah, I mean, the true Genta piece, I mean, this is a designer piece. This is all about design, visual interest, and still, of course, keeping function in mind, which is that blend that, you know, Gerald Genta is so famous for, is kind of blending functionality and form factor to create something very, very unique. And it's unfortunate that, you know, his legacy is mostly tied to, you know, a porthole steel sports watch. But, I mean, those are iconic and great, but, I mean, there's just so much more, and it's funny, there's a lot of people and a lot of designers that take a lot of inspiration from Genta. You just wouldn't know it because he kind of casts such a dark shadow with you know, with some of his more famous pieces. But this is definitely a really interesting niche piece. I mean, even if it wasn't a Genta design, just this retrograde jump hour, oh my gosh, there's just a lot to love there. Then of course, the fact that, you know, you open that up and it's a lot of tiny little gears and cogs and,
yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
Like that is just mystifying, to say the least.
For sure. All right. So continuing with Genta. So this right here is the infamous Universal Genev pole router date. So Genta's first watch, and a lot of history behind this one. And again, a favorite of mine in the collection. Not only for the history aspect of it, which I love, but just for the aesthetic as well of this particular piece. It definitely is one that is going tropical, and in certain angles, it is actually spidering. So it is definitely something that is very, very special. And the quick story behind this is that this, guys, it was an eBay find.
No way.
And this here was basically my first purchase on eBay that is of a certain amount, in which I basically took a big gamble on it. I connected with this seller, and this seller is actually a dealer, a watch shop in Midwest USA. Don't remember which state, but went back and forth. It definitely caught my eye. Went back and forth, and had them take photos, just answer the usual questions that we watch collectors would ask. And I did a crash course on Universal Genev during that period of time to make sure that that obviously it's genuine, it's legit. But of course, in seeing the dealer, I know that they had other vintage pieces as well over there, and I took a chance on this. And when it arrived, the crystal was actually cloudy. So I brought it to my watchmaker and told them specifically to just polish the crystal lightly, tune the movement, but don't touch anything else. And when he called me and I went to pick it up, he just said, "You might want to take a look at this." And sure enough, this dial was the one that was unearthed, and it's just magnificent.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, this is exactly the type of tropical patina that people hope to find, right? It's just, and you have to get that perfect kind of combination of taking care of it while also abusing it, right? And wearing it and getting it out in the sun. Exactly. So that's amazing that after a bit of cleaning, you're able to, oh, yes. And you can see the spidering as you kind of, as you turn it in the light there, which adds another texture. I mean, the color alone, but then when you add the texturing and that spidering of the dial, it's definitely something that's very, very special. And I love that it's, a simple three-hand with a date, but at the same time, there's so much more to kind of drool over, whether it be, the machining on that outer track, or the beautiful, the crosshairs, the tones. And I think that was a really cool strap pairing that you did in terms of the color. It really, really brings that piece to life. And I think that's one of the fun things, of course, about watch collecting is, you can switch it up. You can throw it on a mesh, you can throw it on a sailcloth, a leather, so many different combinations, and you can mess with the stitching within the combinations. And I think you really put together a wonderful pair. And I'm sure if somebody has anything similar, they're going to be giving it a second thought to try to imitate and recapture this look, because it is quite a looker.
Yeah, it definitely gives it a casual one. You could throw on anything. It truly is, as we call it, a strap monster, right? And yeah, just the details of this. I mean, it's all about that. It's all about that trapezoidal date window.
Very cool.
Yeah, everything about this piece is just fantastic. Universal Genev is a brand that I particularly enjoy, and in a way hope that they'll revive it. But if not, bring more attention to it, because they do a number of different pieces. This pocket watch is just something that I recently got into, another rabbit hole, I suppose. But similar to the Brigade that I had shown earlier, it all pretty much kind of came from this, right? And this was the tool watch of yesteryear. And this particular Universal Genev is a chronograph, and it is a circa 1940s, if I'm not mistaken, in great shape. As you can tell, just the workmanship and the quality of the dial including those blue steel hands there, just gives it such a great aesthetic. Here, I'll go ahead and give it a, so you guys can hear it here, but I think that's a favorite sound for for a lot of watch people there, and it's go ahead and activate the chrono there. But yeah, I mean the tool watch of the yesteryear. This particular Universal Genev, I learned that it has actually a double signed, you can say, by the by H.L. Brown and Son, and I learned that that's actually a retailer that provided watches for the military back in the day.
Very
and,
nice.
And yeah, and those are the type of things that, for me, is very interesting, and for me is something that you can trace, that you can dive deep into, and a goal of mine moving forward in this watch journey of ours, of mine, to understand it that much more, to dig deeper into it, because it's one thing to find it, to have it in the collection, but it's that extra step now to learn about it.
What's that case made out of?
So this right here, that's a good question. Honestly, I think it's steel.
Yeah, I mean the patina it has,
on
it almost makes me think it could be sterling, but it is.
Could be.
It is very nice. Like, there are definitely craftsmen that tried to recreate that finish, that look today, and it is very elusive to get something like that. So
that's actually a very good question, and you know, I think even just the ornate case back, you can say, of that there.
Which added grip back in the day as well, right? Exactly. Which is cool. Like, we see it as this kind of ornate detail, but back then they were just like, well, we don't want them to be too slippery when you're out on the railroad tracks, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. And one of the things that I learned is that you know, the open face without the cover is really the one that you know, that started it all. And I've actually carried this. I almost said worn. I've actually carried this, and it's tested true that mini pocket in your jeans.
Yes.
This will fit, and it's not a, you know, we use it for coins and stuff, but I have actually ended with this chain here, and you're just gonna rock it, and it's a cool style, and this guy will fit in that pocket, so which is pretty cool.
Yes. Hey, that's why wallet chains came into style. It's because people were trying to reminisce about how beautiful those braids were when they were holding a killer pocket watch.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I think it's really cool, especially today, where a lot of people carry the time in their pocket another way by having their phone in their pocket. To have something like this, it's just very, very special. And you know, even just the subtlety of the heat blued hands, the way that it's going to look pretty black, you know, contrasting over the white, but every once in a while there'll be a little glimmer, a little glint. That visual flash of interest to me is just amazing. And just the level of detailing on the dial, I mean, the font, the print, I mean, that is just razor sharp. Which is something that even today dial makers do not always get right, where you can have things be fuzzy and blurry and not, you know, sharp or concise. It's nice to see that level of precision just utilized to a level of artistry, really. So very, very nice.
It goes down to the shape of the hands itself, how it's different between the registers, and again, it's all in the details. And that's I think that's one of the things that I'm definitely drawn to in a lot of the pieces that I own. And now the core of my collection, and I say that because this particular brand, IWC, is one that has captured my attention from the start. Growing up, I love the airport for some reason. And there's just something about aviation, there's just something about the sky, about planes. I even did a science report on planes and did paper airplanes, you know, drag, lift, and all that good stuff. So I think IWC does a very good job in representing themselves as that part there with aviation. And this Mark 12 I think is, in my opinion, one of the purest form of a pilot watch. And I think you can also say that this can be a field watch, but it's a military watch. It's a tool watch in its entirety. So a simple time, date. This particular one is a 36 millimeter. I'm still in the hunt for the actual bracelet, which is a unicorn and not easy to get. But in the meantime, you know, this bracelet just gives it a great aesthetic that makes it into a tool watch here. You gotta have that fish crown. Hopefully that's captured there.
Very nice.
It's all about the fish crown there. But this particular Mark 12 is one that actually has a JLC movement in it, and that is one of the things that I feel, being a part of, say, the Richemont group, they do have the luxury of that. So you're essentially having a JLC piece at an IWC price point. So, you know, if you want to kind of look at it that way. But besides the value, historically, this piece, as we all know, the Mark 11 is the part of the Dirty Dozen, military watch there. So this one's kind of the succession of that. And again, with this here is a neo-vintage at its definition, at least for me, in that it's a period of transition. It's a period of growth, like I said earlier, and also a period of just perhaps even rebirth of a brand. And during that time, I feel like there's a lot of originality. There's a lot of kind of looking back to the past, but also thinking about the future. And although this piece is more about, you know, the past and kind of keeping it true to what it is, it still has all of that, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And I mean, there's just a whole subculture around military equipment, right? And I love how versatile IWC is when it comes to, yes, they were one of the original Flieger manufacturers, but also you scale that down and it's just like, hey, you have Arabic numerals, you have a bold triangle on there, it's ultimately legible, and it's something that absolutely works on the ground side as well. And it's just, it's crazy just to know how far they've come when you think about their Mark series, right? We're on the Mark 20 now. And they're always trying to capture or recapture or reinvigorate or remix such a simple formula, but I feel like that's one of the things that make them so timeless. A parallel would be something like Porsche, right? Like all the 911s, they have a very similar look to them, a similar shape that's been refined through so many iterations. And the same goes for IWC and their pilot watches, where it's just a certain level of refinement that you just can't just start off that way, right? Like it comes through these iterations, through these stories, through these journeys. They find things that work for one generation, they change them up for the next. And it's just beautiful to see, you know, the path along the way. I also like that you put it on that beautiful vintage style bracelet there. Right. It looks fantastic. Definitely matches the same type of style in terms of that multi-link engineer style bracelet you would find, you know, as an OEM piece. But then, you know, with the straight end link there, definitely giving it a, you know, more of an aftermarket flair. It looks like something that somebody would have thrown on there and thrown on their wrist and just got it going. So sure. A very, very nice piece. And I'd say very understated for sure.
All right, so this particular piece took me a bit to acquire, to hunt down, and I guess that's definitely part of the fun. But we've talked about Genta, we've talked about IWC, and this guy combines those two. And in addition to that, for me personally, this is the IWC Noir 3705 Chrono, and I'm an engineer by trade, and I felt like it was appropriate for me to also have this piece here. Of course, you know, this one definitely brings a lot of the Genta aesthetics to it. On paper, this piece is actually, I believe, like 35, but put this on the wrist and it feels more like a 37. There's just something about the case design, the case shape, and that integrated bracelet, which is still the craze, right?
Absolutely.
And you know, and this bracelet is just amazing, and you can see just the influence and also how things, you know, with that IWC there. So it's just so comfortable on the wrist. So this piece is actually a mecha quartz. And once again, similar to the Mark 12, this one actually has the JLC mecha quartz movement on it. To the unassuming eye, and because it's pretty well hidden there in the third register, you don't really see a tick. But you know, but for the most part, you still have the aesthetics of the pilot. You've got the triangle there. People think, and it always amuses me, that is a GMT hand, when in fact this is actually an alarm clock. This is an alarm watch.
Nice.
And you know, you've got the screw down crown. So this crown actually is to set the alarm, and perhaps you can use it as a GMT. You know, it's a good thought there. But let me try to see if we can activate it here. Well, let's see here. Probably hear it beep. Or not. But it can be a little fidgety here. But nonetheless, you get the idea that this guy here is actually an alarm clock. And you've got the chrono. And again, one thing that you gotta love about this design is just how it's integrated and how it has also the grip on it there for you to actually actuate the chrono.
Yeah, that thing is beautiful. And again, the watchmaker's watchmaker when it comes to that movement, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. It just goes to show how they've really earned that title. And it's, yeah, this is such a gorgeous piece. It's funny too, because today Mecha Quartz has resurfaced a lot, just with the Seiko Mecha Quartz, and a lot of micro brands using that because you have that mechanical gear train when it comes to actuation of the chronograph. And then you have, of course, the quartz side for timekeeping, which is actually a pretty good model. How is this in terms of battery life? I know for those Seikos, it's you know, if you fidget with it too much, it might not last a full 2 years.
Right.
How is it for maintenance on this bad boy?
It's been good. I mean, ever since I got it, probably I've only had to replace it once. So yeah, it's at about that.
Very cool. Yeah, that is killer.
Yeah.
Yes, IWC, if you're listening, reissue this.
Well, technically they did reissue the Noir, and
they did.
Definitely, you know, appreciated them finally getting into that. And perhaps I'm on a little soapbox here right now, but I know that, you know, they've done a great job with their big pilot line, and you know, they did release the Noir recently. I think size-wise, you know, I think they could, you know, be a little smaller, but for me, it's this right here is still the piece to have, just because of the fit and proportionality of it.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that sets it apart is that even though it is smaller, because it's a more gradual taper on the bracelet, I think it fills the wrist a lot better than you might think for something that was that size. And that can be where things get dicey, where you know, a new company comes around and they kind of have these basic numbers, and they miss out on some of the nuance, and then things that could be a little bit more unisex end up feeling more like, okay, here's the female version of the watch, here's the male version of the watch, just because they, you know, also it saves money, new tooling, right, for something like that. But a very gradual taper like this obviously is quite expensive, because those are all individual links as they go, and it's really not until you get to the underside of the bracelet till you get to where it's more a standard link there, where there's no taper on it. So definitely something to be appreciated, and a level of beauty that is still being, you know, recaptured today by the brand and many other brands.
For sure, and I think the thing about integrated bracelets that I've learned along the way too is that typically it does wear bigger than what it's stated, and depending on how it's designed. But with integrated bracelet, pieces. Hopefully that that continues on. But in looking back at a piece like this, it's definitely one to be appreciated. All right, so this piece here, I think it's gonna have a new story in that since this is the first format of your channel here, which I truly appreciate. So this piece was actually featured on the first episode of Talking Watches with John Mayer and Ben Clymer with Hodinkee. I remember watching that, and when I laid eyes on this IWC, having been a fan of the brand already, I was just struck. And that dial and that color contrast, but more importantly, just something different. We were all aware of divers, but to have a super compressor case, I immediately went and learned about it, and then kind of got a little bit into the rabbit hole of the EFSA case and the technology behind it and all of that. But this particular Aquatimer is a limited edition Jacques Cousteau diver, and that dial is just fantastic. I mean, again, in direct sunlight or even just in regular light, it plays with the light so well. So this piece is very thin as well, which is quite impressive.
What's the water resistance on that?
The water resistance, if I'm not mistaken, it's 300 meters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's just like other divers. Although they do have other Aquatimer in the lineup that actually would be deeper.
Yeah.
And have that equivalent of the deep sea or the ultra.
Yeah. That thinness is still very, very impressive.
Yes, absolutely. And it being on a rubber strap, it just makes it very, very comfortable, and just the slim profile of it. But of course, you also see just the crystal on it there, just kind of give that domed look. One thing that I always find myself doing is to just mess around with that, and sometimes you just gotta go and give it a little spin to make sure that it's it's still good to go there. But I definitely wear this or try to wear this as much as I can on the weekends. It's an easy wear, and yeah, I hope that IWC, I've been saying it, now that you guys have done the Engine Noir, time to bring this guy back as well. And
yeah.
I think that there's a lot of cool aspects of this watch and this lineup and any super compressor actually.
Yeah, I mean that design still looks so modern even today.
Yes.
It just looks right at home. It doesn't. They could really re-release it exactly like that. Of course, add that 120-hour power reserve movement, but it would drive the cost up. But I mean, just aesthetically, this is something. It's so funny because there's such a stark contrast and real juxtaposition against their military heritage in terms of the looks of that. And they could have easily done a dive watch that looked like regular, within that tool space, but they just went in such another direction that is so clean, so crisp and balanced. And that's something that everybody loves within the dive watch space, right? Is this ultimate legibility, a lot of balance, symmetry, because there's only so many ways you can mark 12 hours, right?
Yeah,
and 60-minute scales, and they just do it right. They really did something that, again, it's really their own thing, but at the same time, it's just quite iconic in its own right.
Yeah, I think you said it well in that they they made it their own.
Absolutely.
So this piece, and I mean, every time I look at it, I always try to find ways to talk about it, but even right now, it's just I just kind of let the watch speak for itself. So this is the IWC Vinci Perpetual Calendar Chrono. There is another variation that, and excuse the pronunciation, of the Rochepante, where you essentially have another counter there. But this particular piece and its design, its unique design, just to me is what an art piece, an art on your wrist should look like. You've got the complication where you can see you've got the moon phase, you've got, you know, things that are just well balanced. And again, I'm trying to put my words into it, but again, I just stare at it and I think it just speaks for itself. Mechanically, it is very impressive, and that's, I think, one of the other reasons why I'm drawn to IWC even till now, is that everything is set via the crown. So this actually has a Valjoux base with Kurt Klaus's Perpetual calendar module on top of it, and you technically can leave this off of a winder and just set it and go, because everything is just set with the one with the crown there. But this particular variation, and its kind of glossy black dial there with the contrast of the registers, as well as just those small red accents on the tip of the register hands, just brings everything together. It is a 39mm case with a stepped bezel there and the high domed crystal, and just you look at it from many different angles, and of course cannot not talk about the lugs there. So, you know, and just
so
how it
cool.
just hugs the wrist, and it is a piece that you could put, you know, you can make casual, you can make dressy, and it can be a daily piece. So, and it's kind of interesting to be able to say that that you have a perpetual calendar as a daily, right?
Yeah.
That with this watch, it's a possibility, and it's very stealth and just below the radar.
Yeah, I love the levels to it with the stepped bezels going into kind of mirroring the dome of the crystal. Those articulated lugs are just really, really impressive and so forward thinking, right? Like, right. And when it comes to making something wearable, hey, they understood the assignment. Hey, it's gonna be a little thicker with these complications. Let's make sure that it's very wearable and proportionate. And they really, of course, they always look at it with that kind of eye of an engineer, right?
Yeah.
So there's so much functionality that's there. And there's a lot of information, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of information there if you want to dive into it, but still at a glance, you know that it's something purposeful, something balanced, something very, very handsome, and something that somebody put a lot of thought into, even just design-wise, apart from the mechanics, apart from the execution that had to be on such a high level to kind of squeeze everything into this form factor. So, whew.
Yeah, I mean, most definitely, and it's just, at a glance, it's just very well balanced, and again, it's just impressive, right? And if only we could be there during the thought and the design process of kind of how all the different sketches, you know, those are the type of things that I kind of think about, you know, when I see a piece like this.
Absolutely. Okay, Aldo, this has been outstanding. Let's go ahead and just, you know, summarize here in terms of your collection and what it means to you.
Yeah, as you guys can tell by now, my collection is quite eclectic. It covers all the bases, all the different forms, and it's certainly representative of kind of my love for this hobby and my interest in anything that's watch related, as well as making sure that it incorporates my enjoyment of art. I think for me, it's all about the neo-vintage niche. It speaks to me the most. It's all about the just the design elements, the technicality of those years, and as you can see, just with all the pieces that I've shared with you, it definitely is something that I cherish and is at the core of my collection.
Awesome. I mean, I really love your collecting style. I think the neo vintage, obviously, you're ahead of the game, right? You're collecting the stuff before it becomes super scarce, before it becomes completely unattainable, and eventually the new vintage will be just the vintage stuff, right? It's like oldies. There's always new classic music because we just keep moving forward, and that's something that you really covered here and captured in terms of growth, right? And brands coming a long way, models coming a long way, the level of effort put in kind of within that snapshot of time, whether it be 80s or 90s, late 70s. There's just so many cool references that still today are in flux, you know, in terms of different iterations, and some that we wish could come back, like Universal Genev.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So it was just really awesome to talk watches with you and really get that, you know, again, your eclectic take on collecting, whether it be down to a singular watch and how many elements of design or engineering kind of come into play, or then seeing kind of everything as a whole and how it comes together and really tells a story about yourself. So
yeah, I mean, you know, I appreciate the opportunity to share it, and I know that there is a theme, or at least some consistent, you know, string that connects all of this. But I think the biggest thing, and I'm sure, you know, we've heard it all too, is ultimately purchase what you like, and definitely purchase something that speaks to you, and something that ultimately you can enjoy, make memories with, and call it your own.
Absolutely. All right, so that was one heck of a collection, one heck of a share. If you guys made it all the way to the end, I don't care if you fast forwarded or not. I get it. Everyone, some people are watching this on a phone, right?
That's true.
I get it. You might have to go through sections, but it's just, you know, I wanted to really have you tell the story, and I really appreciate you doing that. And just one, it's a challenge to say, hey, bring some watches that represent you, because there's a lot of different ways this can go. You can kind of just bring everything and find something to say, or you can bring really what you love and what you care about, and really tell that story. And I think Aldo did that just perfectly, set the tone. Big shoes to fill for the next people, the next enthusiasts that come through here and run the gauntlet and get an interview. If you're interested, definitely, and you're in the San Diego area, reach out to me, whether it be Instagram or you know, down in the comments. But I'll go ahead and turn it over to Aldo. Hey, where can we find you, sir, for more watch content, more storytelling, and more questions to answer?
That's true. Well, you can find me on Instagram. It's at watch_artlogi, ARTLOJI. And you can find me at get-togethers and events that has to do with watches and art. So looking forward to meeting a number of you, and just like what we did with Mark, to actually put an awesome person behind a simple Instagram handle, you know. So again, thank you very, very much, and it's been a great opportunity and a great experience.
Very, very cool. I hope you guys appreciated that. Also, thank you to the folks of the Seabird Hotel and Resort. We'll definitely, I'm sure you guys saw in the intro, there's some nice B-roll shots that were there. This is a really cool location, and I hope to make it just kind of a regular staple just because of how well lit it is and how well the decor is. I mean, everything is really, really cool. There's a lot of spaces here that you guys didn't even catch on this episode. So I will definitely leave his Instagram down in the description, so you guys don't have to worry about spelling it correctly, because you're just gonna click right on that bad boy, right? And let's boost up those followers, and let's see if we can, you know, let's meet up. I think that's one of the fun things, and hopefully eventually we can throw some level of a get together and film that, and people will go into it knowing that there'll be a guy with a camera, so we won't, you know, catch anybody, you know, feeling shy or anything like that. So thanks again, guys. If you liked the video, please do it like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.